Hello! Welcome to our Thursday tea and toast at the yard. So the doors are closed, but we're always open, aren't we, everyone? Give me a nod. Yeah, see, confirmation there. So let's kick off by introducing you to all of these lovely ladies and gentlemen that we've got here today. So I'm Georgia. I'm a conversation starter at the yard, and I do lots of different graphic designy, technological, talking about random stuff, coming up with business ideas, that kind of thing. So Jasmin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jasmin. You may have seen me before on the Tea and Toast. So I'm a conversation starter at the Yard, and predominantly I sort of work with the community side of things within the Yard. So yeah, I do the Tea and Toast. I do conversation starters. So if you haven't yet seen me, every Wednesday and Thursday, 10:30, this is what I'll be doing, talking about all different things for you guys to get involved with too. So yeah, join in, get involved in the fun.
Woo! Now the lovely Lauren, could you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Lauren. I'm a uni student and I'm in second year and I'm currently on placement with the Yard and I help with the community court yard. I help with the conversation starters and the teas and toast.
Awesome. Pal?
Hello everyone, my name is Pal. I'm also a second year university student doing my placement at Community Courtyard.
Cool. Doris, do you want to give yourself a little introduction there?
Hello, my name's Doris. I'm a youth worker here and I'm going to be doing some volunteering work here and that's what I'll be doing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Khadija?
Hi everyone, just like Lauren and Pell, I'm a university student. I'm volunteering at Community Courtyard and in the past couple of weeks I've been joining in with Tea and Toast.
Awesome. And now we have a fresh face, someone that you've not seen before. This is Pete Martin. He's coming to us from the Rontov Foundation. Do you want to give us a little hello?
Yep. Hi. I like the idea of fresh faced. That's great. You can keep that up. I haven't been called that for quite a few years. I had hair probably the last time I was called that. But yeah, I do a little bit of work with Rontov Foundation at the moment, teaching an online course around Mackenzie friendship. And George is one of my star students on that. And there's about to be another star student on Sunday when we do session 2, aren't you, Georgia?
Absolutely.
And she's done her homework as well. I know, I can tell all that. So yeah, I've known Bianca quite a few years now through Rontov Foundation. So I've been doing a few bits and bobs, and I was really pleased to be asked by Jasmin to come on today and share my experience. I think that's what it was, Jasmin, wasn't it? Although you did say free toast, I remember.
Well, yeah, I guess the thing is, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be in the building and I'd be supplying you with copious amounts of tea and toast. But hence this world we're living in at the moment, Pete. I'm sorry, got to make your own.
Virtual toast, that'll do.
Virtual toast. I mean, like, I've got some squash here. I'll do cheers with you. Have you got a drink with you, Pete?
I haven't. No, I did it earlier.
Oh.
I had my coffee.
Yeah.
I got too excited, so.
Oh well, no, that's it. The excitement is just unreal, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, we asked Pete to come along this morning because today's Tea and Toast is obviously all about. We're talking all social change and activism, aren't we, Georgia?
Yeah. So we're talking about what is social change, what is activism, and we're going to be talking about, it doesn't matter how little or how much you know about this subject, because we're all going to be learning here today, aren't we?
Definitely.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to do is a fun little game called the word association game, which Pell loves. Pell always does really well. So here are the rules. You can't hesitate. You can't pause. You have to just say the first thing that comes into your head. So is everyone ready to play this little game?
Yeah. How are we doing? Sorry, how are we doing this? How do we know who's next? Are you going to tell us?
So we'll start with because I think my square is like down here, so I can't really. So if Jasmin, if I give you your first word,
yeah,
and then we'll go Jasmin, Lauren, Pell, Doris, Khadija, me, and then Pete at the end.
Okay.
So it's in order on everyone's screens then.
Yeah.
That has all of that.
Yeah, I mean that'd be the easiest thing, wouldn't it? Rather than going right, Jasmin, Lisa, me, Pete, Mel, Lauren. Might be a bit too confusing to remember. So your first word, Jasmin, is protest.
Placards.
Suffragettes.
Sorry guys, I'm so bad at this
So
game.
apparently what I'm supposed to do is if you take too long, I'm supposed to go bong and you've been hit on the head with the mallet. Can you go back a bit? Bong. There you go. We'll start again. So your first word, Jasmin, is social.
Disco.
Change. It's you, Doris.
Is that me? Sorry.
Yeah, Pel's out.
I've gone too long now. Disco, that was.
Bong! You have to go back, Chris. I'm sorry.
I thought Pel was going.
No, when you get it wrong, you're out.
You're out. You're out.
That's fine.
We're not taking any what's the word? That's it. That's it. This is serious.
It's
serious
a brutal
stuff,
game.
isn't
It
it?
is brutal, but you know that's how you get better. You have to just.
Pel's chilling.
I'm really scared now. Really scared.
Okay, first word is change.
Clothes.
Primark.
What did you say? Primark.
Yeah.
Shops.
Bitcoin.
People.
Humans.
Biology.
Science.
Mass.
Difficult.
Easy.
Sets.
What did she say?
What did you say?
Did you say what I thought you said?
I said
That was
sets.
sets,
Like
not
sets. You know,
sets
you have
with a
sets.
TS.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Groups.
Sets. Sorry, my mind's been blown. What has just happened? Lauren said what?
I said sets, like math sets.
SETS.
TS.
Set.
Oh, okay. And then Kidisa said,
Groups.
oh, people.
Crowd.
Bong, sorry,
Oh.
Pete, it took too long.
Look, I am 400 miles away, you know.
Okay, so the
I'm allowed
first
to
word
delay.
the first word is unions.
Ron Todd.
Students.
Community courtyard.
The yard.
Yard. Oh, wait.
Work.
Volunteer.
Working together.
Apart.
Community.
Social.
Media.
TV.
DVD.
Films.
Phones.
Sims.
Games.
Nintendo.
PlayStation.
Xbox.
Fortnite.
PS5.
Computer screens.
Monitor.
Among Us.
What?
Among Us.
Oh, Netflix.
TV shows.
Amazon.
Towie.
EastEnders.
Bong, sorry. Are you okay? You look really.
My internet froze for a second, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to be out. I'll take
You look
it.
like really upset. You look like.
Wait, did I freeze?
No, you
No.
didn't. You were just there. You were just there. Like,
Oh, okay.
you look really sad.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm out now.
Okay, so it's just Jasmin, Lauren, and me.
Oh gosh.
So our words is Unity.
Together.
Peace.
Anger.
Sadness.
Happy.
Sad.
Tears.
Feelings.
Hurt.
Down.
Depressed.
Happy.
Someone's already said that. Boing. Can't
Okay,
repeat the word, Georgia.
Okay, it's Jasmine and Lauren now.
Right, Lars, me and you.
Okay, your words is society.
People.
Together.
Friendship.
Don't know. Community.
Cohesion.
Oh, the mallet was coming.
Cohesion.
Social.
People.
The yard.
Work.
Placement.
Uni.
Assignments.
School.
Teachers.
Students.
Pupils.
Lessons.
Maths.
Science.
Nature.
Animals.
Kingdom.
United.
Jasmin is the winner, the reigning champion. That was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
That
I'll
was
tell you
so
what,
good.
that's because I've watched so much Timmy Mallet in my younger days. I'm all over that game.
Oh man, that was so good.
That got really
super.
intense, didn't it? Really
I know.
intense.
Honestly, the pressure was too much then.
I'm breaking a sweat. I need like a little towel or something, like boxers have when they're doing the.
We need like sweatbands on next time.
Yeah, that was a lot. Okay, so if you enjoyed this game of word association, comment and let us know, because we can make this like a semi-regular thing, and then we can find out who will topple Jasmin as reigning champion of the word association game.
Yeah, who's gonna challenge me in this one?
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, could anyone beat that?
Don't know. I'm pretty good at it, gotta say.
Okay, so today's word, or today's definitely. Today's subject is social change and activism, like we mentioned at the beginning. So it's just like a fun little word association game to kind of get us thinking about what words we associate with protesting, with society, with change, with unions. So here's my first question. Have any of you seen a protest in person?
Yeah.
Everyone's nodding. Okay, so Lauren, what protest did you see?
After the whole George Floyd thing, I remember driving down Welly Road, and I was like by Abington Park, and the police were trying to get, because it was peaceful, they were just walking, everyone was walking up towards Abington Park, and there was like this big congress where everyone was taking a knee. But I do remember that because I was trying to drive, and like people were banging on my windows like, you need to come and join in. And I think people, because I'm black, it was almost like, why are you not walking with us? This has just turned very deep. But I remember going down Welly Road and that protest was going on, and I'll never forget it, because it was just mad. It was absolutely madness.
That's a really good story. So how did that sort of like make you feel when you, I mean, I'm guessing that you heard about it before, maybe, about the situation?
I was, well, in that time, like when it was happening, I felt a bit like, hold on, like, I don't have to walk with you guys just because I'm black. Like, I agree with what's going on, and I get it, and it wasn't like a violent thing, but that doesn't mean, because I think sometimes people's agendas like can be wrong, in a sense of some people don't want equilibrium between races. They want to be superior to other races, and I think that's wrong, and that's why I'll like, depending on the motive, but that what was going on there, I didn't really agree with it, but people were just like, come on, you need to get out the car, you need to join us, and if anything, it just made me more defiant in not joining, because I thought your motive and how you're going about this is wrong. But that was the walk. The thing in the park, I thought it was, you know, all right, there's quite a lot of different races there, and it was peaceful. So, but when I did find out, I was very infuriated. I had a lot of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Did anyone else see any of the BLM protests from last year? Pal, did you see one?
Yeah, although we're living in quite a small town, loads of my friends from school, they put on their social media how they were going to walk, or I think it was like a Saturday or something. So I did see that happening in my town, yes. So
how did you feel about that when you found out what it was about and the reasons for people protesting?
obviously, like I feel for them, because obviously this has been going on for too long and it's really unfair. And the fact that they have to do this just so their voices can be heard is, in my opinion, it's not right, you know. So, like, although they can't do much, but this is the most that they're trying to do to be heard. And I feel like loads of people are like facing like protests just to get their voices heard, and I think like it's not fair that they need to reach that level to like live fairly in this world, you know. So I just, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember reading about what was going on, and the thing is, I think a lot of people, they didn't understand why people were protesting in the UK, because the certain situations that kind of kicked everything off last year, with the George Floyd murder, etc. People were saying, well, why are you protesting in the UK? But I think a lot of people are living with privilege, myself included, from being white. And the fact of the matter is, racism exists everywhere. And it's not like it's only in America that racism exists. And it's not like it's only in the UK that it exists. So when people were protesting, they were sort of saying, look, even though this certain situation that kicked off happened in America, that's not to say that so many, hundreds, thousands of situations have not happened here.
Definitely. I actually have never seen a protest. I've never been part of one. I've never seen one. And I don't know if this is going to come across in a bad way, and I don't mean it to, but I don't know yet if in my lifetime I've ever become, and this doesn't mean that I don't care about things, and that I do, but I don't know if I've ever become passionate enough about something that would then take me to go and protest about it. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a bad way, because obviously I do care about the Black Lives Matter, and I do think there's so many terrible things going on, but nothing has made me get so passionate that's made me feel I need to go out and protest.
Do you think that's because, if in your life, if you've not experienced racism yourself, so do you think that if you had a friend or if you knew someone who could tell you this is my experience, and who told you a story about it, do you think that would make you think more about it in the sense of wanting to protest?
Yeah, I think so, because I think the thing is that sometimes, you see the different protests and things going on, whether it be on the news or anything, and although you can understand what's going on, sometimes if you can't relate it to your own sort of life, it becomes a bit of a thing, a distant thing, But yeah, if I'd been through, suffered racism or any other, thing that affected me in such a terrible way, then perhaps that would be or even you're like a close friend, like you say, and I'd heard about something terrible and perhaps join forces with them to support them. Absolutely. I guess as well as, I mean, I've said this before on our Tea and Toast, I'm not a massively political person either, which is quite surprising considering the family I come from. And I don't know if it's because my family is so political, it's maybe made me go a little bit, don't get me wrong, this whole pandemic has really opened my eyes to a lot of things that our government are doing, and I definitely have changed my thoughts and opinions on a lot of things. And I'm definitely becoming a bit more vocal about what I think's right and wrong and how they've handled this pandemic. And I guess it's we spoke about before, didn't we, Georgia? It's like it's easy to sort of go, oh, you know, politics, that doesn't affect me, but it does. It affects all of us, doesn't it? Because you know, I'm as a woman, I wouldn't have had the right to vote if it wasn't for the suffragettes. Emily, what's her name? Emily
Davison.
Emily Davison. Who's Emily Pankhurst?
Oh no, it is Pankhurst, yeah.
Is it?
Those two.
Yeah.
Those two.
Oh, but there's another one as well, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking I've just made some really random name up then. But yeah, you know, as a parent now, you know, thinking about my children's future and what's going to be, what's their future going to look like with different governments and that. So I think as I'm getting a bit older and I'm realising how much politics can or does affect our everyday lives, it is making me start to be a little bit more vocal and opinionated.
Pete, have you ever joined in a protest or seen one?
Yeah, quite a few. Quite a few in the past.
What's the one protest that kind of really sticks in your mind?
Do you know, it's going back a long time, and I don't know whether you've heard of the poll tax.
Yeah.
Which was So
yeah,
it was something that Margaret Thatcher brought in. It was a personal tax. It's like it was a charge levied on every individual, and it was so wrong and unjust. It made everybody decide. Well, the majority of people decided. Certainly, where I'm from, Leicester originally, area I lived in, everybody decided as a protest we're not going to pay it, and that sort of caught on. And you know, we ended up in court. I think I mentioned this, Georgia, on the course last week. Well, I ended up in court because of refusing to pay. And it just caught on, and it just ended up being a national protest, which ended up in quite a lot of violence, certainly in larger cities, Leicester, Nottingham, London, a lot of riots in London around it. But because of the strength of feeling, it actually changed the law, because the government decided, you know, if you've got to get people to comply, haven't you? If you want to change the law and get things done, everybody's got to buy into it. And we all decided it was wrong, and we didn't buy into it. So they changed the law. We've still got it. It just became the council tax. So we still have it, but we changed the way that it was imposed on us. So that's one that always springs to mind. I know it was a long time ago, but it did actually bring everybody together. The big problem was once we changed the law, everybody went back to normal.
Yeah.
We had a point where we could have changed a lot of other. There was a lot of other things going on in the 80s. You know, and employment was quite high, homelessness was quite high. We all focused on the poll tax. Sorted that, we all went back to our cozy lives, didn't we? And we could have changed a lot more, and we didn't. So that was one of the big ones for me. Yeah.
Sorry, Pete, can I just ask you a question? So you said, for example, the poll tax protest you was involved in, and a lot of it turns out, went into violence and stuff. Do you feel like that when those sort of protests, then the violence comes into it? Do you feel like it can take away the value of the protest, or do you know what I mean? Are they ruining what you're trying to do by getting violent?
Well, this is the problem. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for peaceful protest, to be honest, because I think that carries more weight, doesn't it? It's quite powerful and it's quite strong. I think when it descends into violence, I completely understand why it does, because people get frustrated. People want some change. If those that are in power decide to resist that change, people then think, right, we'll take things into our own hands. So you get violence. Then I think it detracts from what we try to do. So I think
right, if I say something, but then I think on the other hand, when they try to do that in that aggressive way, it just makes it seem completely worse. As you were saying, it doesn't resolve any issue at all, and it kind of adds to the fire. So
I think it does two things. One, it allows the government then to say, look, it's just a rabble, it's a mob, isn't it?
Yeah.
But secondly, you start to lose any public support you had, because when you're protesting or campaigning, you do need that wider support. This is why I think the poll tax protests worked quite well initially, because everybody could see how unfair it was, and it affected everybody. And it was, Jasmin, it was politics, big politics that affected every person, which still does today. It's just that it's hidden, isn't it? But the poll tax was in front of everybody. Of course, some of the violence then it then started to. The danger was start to lose that bit of public opinion, which you desperately needed. So it's a strange thing to see it happen. Lauren, you got your hand up there, so.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, off what you were saying, and like maybe get your insight on, like, the London riots, for example. I was really in Tottenham. I was really young when that happened. I think it happened in 2010 or 11. But I remember my parents talking about it and everything. But I just saw it as looting, because all I would hear is that someone's broken into JD or smashed open like all the stores. I didn't know until because I think I must have been in about year 7 or 8. So I didn't really know until I was maybe year 9, 10, the reason actually what it stemmed from the shooting of the police officer or someone shooting someone.
Yeah.
But for me, I didn't see that, because obviously it escalated and then people jumped on the gangwagon and made it into something bigger than what it should have been, which doesn't help what they're fighting for, because now they've turned it unlawful. And it didn't actually get, if I'm correct, it didn't actually get anything from them looting, just got people. Because I remember, and they was talking about it, that a lawyer got caught stealing from JD Sports. And then the whole thing was, oh, should he be punished just as much as if he wasn't a lawyer? And they were like, well, yes, because it doesn't matter about his status. He's still broken the law, regardless of whether he, of his job position.
Yeah.
But I do think it's if we look back sort of like historically, and I could be wrong, so please correct me if I am, but I think there is a difference between like violent protests and like an aggressive protest, or like because I mean, if you think about the suffragettes, for instance, like they were like starving themselves, they got put in prison, they were like force fed, all this kind of stuff, and like I would say that that's quite intense. And then you've obviously got what happened with the like segregation protesting, that like apartheid, etc. So I think it might be like contextual to what the situation is and where you are.
Yeah.
But I think with those riots, like it started off being something that the family of whoever got shot was infuriated by. So they were just trying to be heard, but no one was listening.
Yeah. The issue there, Lauren, is that you've got to be careful about what becomes the story. So initially the story was about the injustice of somebody being shot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But later on, not that long after that, the story became about looting. You sort of get lost in the whole thing. That's the danger when things get a little bit out of hand. You lose sight of the real story, and of course the media will do that and the government will do that. They'll go, okay, let's take people's gaze away from the shooting. Let's get more thinking about those really horrible people that are running off with TVs and sneakers out of JD Sports. That becomes a story. It's on the front page, and if you're not careful, you just then forget what you were actually protesting
about.
Danger.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what you've got to all I'll just finish off the Pell before I forget, because I'll go off on a tangent if I don't. Don't forget there are people there that want to cause a bit of trouble anyway. So you've got a real. It is a minority. It's a small amount of people. Also remember, you've got the establishment that want to cause trouble as well, because they want to make the protesters look like the bad guys, don't they?
Yeah.
So sometimes you get that little bit of, I'll tell you what, let's fight this car, maybe, and then people focus on that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Sometimes
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I understand.
Sorry, Pal, do you want to get it?
It's okay, don't worry about it. As Lauren said, I was in year 7 when I was living in Tottenham, and I was there when the riot happened. I was literally living one street away from everything. So one night everything was fine, and the next shops were on fire. You could hear things exploding, like people were getting killed. And the reason, like, people were telling me it was because of a policeman did something to somebody on the street, like somebody got shot or something. That was the reason that was told to me. Literally, like, TVs were being stolen. Like, within 2 days, or no, within one night, Tottenham was no longer Tottenham. It was like everywhere was broken. We didn't have shops anymore. Everywhere was like burnt. It was a very scary experience, but I didn't understand because I was in year 7 and I was like, why is everyone doing this? It was a very scary experience.
But let's think about quite recently anti-war protests. When the Iraq wars kicked off, we had over 1 million people in London protesting peacefully. There's no looting, no fighting. It can be done. We can protest en masse quietly, and I thought that was really powerful, that you had all those people that were focused on one thing and sending a message out to the government.
Pete, I don't actually remember that. I don't know about this anti-war with Iraq that you're talking about, which I think is quite interesting, because it's like, although peaceful protests are supposed to get the most, be the most effective, I don't actually, I don't remember that. I remember the more when it gets out of hand, and then the story of what you're actually fighting for gets lost, because it's like people think that when you're from a student, because I'm still quite young, from that perspective, like I don't see them peaceful. All you see on social media is just like, oh my days, someone's hit off here or someone's done this, and it's like, oh yeah, you'll fight for that. But then the peaceful ones, they kind of get lost in it, because it's like, because it's peaceful, they're not passionate because they're not doing anything about it.
It's not newsworthy, is it?
Yeah.
It's not exciting.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
So I know the students had a bit of homework that I set you. So I think if one of you wants to kind of share what you learned from your homework, I asked them to kind of research different times in history where there's been sort of like protests and like a movement. So who wants to go first?
I did about the anti-war in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
I did quite a lot of research. It was quite some of it was quite hard to understand, like why it all happened, but I got there eventually. I don't know, do you want me to read my notes out?
Yeah, just like tell us what is it, or what was it?
So like I focused on South Vietnam, and they were like suffering from communist aggression, in which like America decided to take over and try and help them, but in fact they made matters worse. So they were like suffering with, like, how should I say this? Power. It was all about power, really, So they had something called peace movement leaders, where they really they opposed of the war. They really did not want war to happen. Like they were having a peaceful protest. However, as America kept on ignoring their voices, this protest started to become more violent. So the people living in South Vietnam, they had enough. So they started to attack, and they started to act more aggressive towards like the Americans and the military. In which
did this tactic of being more aggressive, so did it work?
Yeah, it did actually work because they started to become more aggressive, and there was quite a lot of them. So despite the military having like bombs and everything, they realized that these bombs were not doing anything to stop them. So in like January 1973, the American military, they decided to just leave South Vietnam and call it quits. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I don't know like loads about this, but I believe, and Pal, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that the average soldier's age in Vietnam was 19.
Yeah, it was 19. Students
Which is...
students protested about that as well. They had a protest about why is it okay for soldiers to fight and die at the age of 19, but they were not allowed to vote or drink.
Yeah.
So they were like, this isn't right. Yeah, so that was another protest that was also going on.
That's amazing. That's really good. Thank you, Pearl, for sharing that with us. Lauren, what did you do?
I had Black Lives Matter, and it started. I just researched it. To be honest with you, I'm actually giving my opinion now, but I agree with the I like the movement, but I don't agree with some of what they stand for. But it started off in 2013 by 3 Black women on social media, just with the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and it was over a shooting in Florida. Basically, a neighborhood watch volunteer in the community noticed a young man. He was a teenager, and he thought he looked suspicious, and he called the police. And the police told him, the volunteer, not to do anything, and just to wait. And they're on their way, and the volunteer didn't, and he went to confront the teenager, and they got into an argument, and he basically shot him. And then once he'd shot him, he remained he wasn't detained for a couple of weeks before the trial happened. And obviously that was quite infuriating and went all over social media, because if it was the other way around and it was, say, a black person who shot a white person, they would have been arrested straight away. There wouldn't have even been an argument about that. So then that's how it kind of kicked off. I didn't actually really know about Black Lives Matter, the actual movement, until the whole George Floyd thing happened. Just off me personally, I didn't, obviously you've seen events, but I didn't know that it was an actual movement. And obviously the George Floyd movement just kicked off a whole new wave of, protesting. For his daughter, she actually, her education's been funded for her up until university, and Laura Ashley, the home company, they actually redid her room after the whole incident, like as a goodwill gesture to show their support for the movement, which I thought was quite nice. That it's a big company, but that's the movement.
So do you think that the protests, like the George Floyd protests, do you think that they worked? Do you think that they had like an outcome?
I think it needed to be as violent as it did go to, because I think, for example, the police officer who did it, he was going to be charged with third-degree murder or something like that, and wasn't going to get more significant sentence when it was blatant that he murdered him. And it was like, well, why should he get away with it just because he's a police officer? And I think it did need to get to where it was. And I think even in the UK, how black people are treated, I think it's not good at all.
Yeah,
disgraceful.
Yeah, it is. I was driving last year and I got pulled over because I'd swerved. They said that I'd swerved in my lane. And the way they spoke to me, and I was so scared, I was crying. I've never been in trouble with the police in my life. I was proper crying. And it was horrible. And I'm not saying it's because I was black, but 100% the treatment that I've received, you know, I didn't know that you had to keep your hands on the wheel. So I'd gone to come out of my car to say, like, oh, sorry, you know, and he screamed at me to get back in my car. And I was petrified. I was absolutely petrified. And I've been around friends who've been arrested, or you've seen video clips. And I really think, even in the UK, I think the protests had to happen because I do think it's wrong.
I agree, because I mean, same as you, Lauren, before the George Floyd incident, I'd never heard of Black Lives Matter. And obviously, just hearing what you said then, I didn't realise it started way back with other people. I thought it was just something that started with this whole incident. And I have to say, as shocking as it was to watch that video clip of what that policeman did to George Floyd, I feel like it's sort of really given people a bit of an eye-opener, because it's all very well, you know, I know this has been going on for years and years, but the things now that we all have like cameras on our mobiles and stuff like that, it's actually bringing to light. We can actually prove that this treatment is going on. And I think that's what people needed to see, because for me personally, I found that video footage absolutely shocking. And as much as, you know, do you need a shock factor? Do you need a wow factor for people to jump on board? Sometimes you do. And sometimes that sort of shock factor actually gives people that impetus to go, do you know what? Actually, this can't happen anymore. I do think that all the protests and, you know, that went on with that, they did what they needed to do in that, in raising their profile of Black Lives Matter, in my opinion.
What do you think? I'm quite curious to hear your opinion, because like I said in the beginning, I thought sorry, George, I'm trying to take over.
That's right. Go ahead.
Lauren.
I just think that, because I really am for like equal, you know, between everyone, but I do think that some of the motives for Black Lives Matter is to be superior, and I'm not flashing like my race, because I'm very passionate about it and I will speak for it, but at the same time I like to think with a fair head, and I do think that some of the motives are not. Do you know what I mean? What do you think?
It's difficult, isn't it? I think what for me, I'm just really interested in listening to Jasmin about one of the things I think Black Lives Matter has really done really well is actually brought awareness to people like me. I mean, for example, I don't have any hassle walking down the street because I'm a middle-aged white bloke with no hair and glasses, so nobody ever stops me. But the reality for a lot of people, what are you laughing at, Jasmin? Reality for a lot of people is that they are going to get stopped because of the way they look, aren't they? Yeah. So I think what Black Lives Matter has done is really raise that awareness wider about what really does go on. It has been going on for years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's been going on for years, but it's hidden. It's hidden from the majority of people. With any grouping, there's always going to be some things that, you know, sections of that group will have a different agenda, won't they, and want to pursue that.
Okay.
There's always going to be that. But I think generally, I think the BLM movement has been a force for good. Some of the stuff that I've seen, and I like to think I'm quite well educated in what's going on out there. Some of it's appalling. I hadn't realised it'd been going on for so long. So, in one respect, the BLM movement it's been good.
Do you think change
the violence, though? Say again.
Do you think change has happened from it?
It's got to, hasn't it? We can't carry on as we have been doing. It's completely wrong. Completely wrong. When you've got in the UK, for example, you have black MPs pulled over for stop and search. It's all got out of control. The things have got to. It's got to stop. I think the pandemic as well has just demonstrated to us how unjust and unequal things are. So, just down to the fact that more BAME people die of COVID than any others is quite a shocking statistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So things have got to change. We have to change. It's up to young people like yourself to make that change.
Yeah. Which is why they were doing all that protest.
We can't go back. We can't go back. I mean, one thing that if you want to take any positives from the pandemic, is open people's eyes to how unequal society is, and I feel there's a groundswell. There's a need for change. It's just people don't know how to do it at the moment. How do we go about that change? I think there's a thirst for it. And certainly young people that I talk to are ready for change, just not quite sure how to do it at the moment. That's where you got groups like BLM, for example, are doing great stuff around. Oh, these are the things we can do. This is how we can change stuff. So there's no pressure on you lot, is there, really? But it's down to you. Really, and I'm quite heartened just listening to you talking just this morning. I think change will happen. It will.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For discussion now, I think things will, and I can just retire and be nice and cozy and comfortable. Let you lot do the hard work. Yeah,
absolutely. So Khadija, I haven't forgotten about you. Khadija was sitting there and she was going, she hasn't asked me. She hasn't asked me. Gonna get away with it. So what was yours? What was your topic? Your time?
So Jasmin and Lauren, I think they've already touched on this, but the suffragettes. So it happened during the 19th and early 20th century, and it was basically, obviously, as most of you guys know, they were struggling against the Parliament and the general public to eventually gain the vote for the entire British population, which happened in 1928. Also, those who took part were groups and societies dedicated to the cause of women's suffrage, which formed in the late 1860s. And I don't know if you've heard of the National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies. So that was one of the organisations, and also their approach was to campaign peacefully and to hold public meetings and lobby Parliament with petitions and publish various newspapers, leaflets, and also just outlining the reasons why women should be able to vote. But then there was also another organisation called Women's Social and Political Union, and they were known to take a more militant view. So they were their campaign was characterized to be more violent and disruptive, and also I think Jasmin mentioned about, I don't know if you said Emily, or I don't know if it's Emmeline or Emily, I don't know. But,
I said Emily Pankhurst, and do you know how I remember? This is going to just, sorry, Khadija, I'm just going to quickly jump in because it's just a random.
Which one was it?
So the reason why my first sort of memory or knowing about the suffragettes is from when I was younger and was watching Mary Poppins, the original, and in that the mum of, and she went off and she sings a song about the suffragettes, and her husband is George the banker. He doesn't like her getting involved in all of this, and that was my first real sort of eye opener of the suffragettes. And obviously just in a kids' film, but from a very young age. So that's where I started to hear about it first. Sorry, Khadija. I'll shut up now.
Out of these, the two organisations that you have sort of researched. So which one do you think was the most effective? Was it the peaceful protests, or was it the more, as you say, militant type of protests?
Well, I feel like obviously like the militant one obviously did gain a lot of attention because like the woman Emily Davison, I don't know if you guys heard about it, but she like she walked out in front of a king's horse at the Epsom Derby.
Yeah.
And she later died of like her injuries. And also there was like in that organisation they like chained themselves to railings and set fire to like public and private property, and also like disrupted speeches as well at public meetings. I think like those stuff that they did, I feel like was more. I know it's really bad, but I feel like that got a lot of attention.
Yeah. So out of the like, what was the outcome of those protests?
So they. I've just got my notes.
It's all right. It ended up with sort of votes for women.
Yeah, so I was just looking. So I know that there was like so in 1867, I know there was someone called John Stuart Mill who did debate on women's suffrage, but then he was defeated. But then that started a lot of campaigns, and let me see the date. I know also in 1870 the Queen supported that she denied the equal voting rights as well in 1870, and in I'm trying to find the date of where they.
I mean, we learn about it, don't we, in school? That so eventually people we got the vote, and then like however many decades after that, then women could have their own bank accounts, because that only happened in like 1960, I want to say.
What? That a woman can have her own bank account?
Yeah, it was something like 1960, I think. It was around that kind of time.
That's ridiculous.
I'm sure Bianca will comment.
Like they didn't even they weren't able to I think when they were like in 1882 a woman's property was often reverted to her husband on their marriage, so they weren't actually able to but then
honestly it's shocking really when you think about all these things now, isn't it? It's absolutely shocking.
Even is it Saudi Arabia when women could only drive? That's very recent.
And that's also like
only
in Dubai,
Dubai,
where if you're not married, you're not allowed to hold hands, or you can't. You can't do certain things in public, and it's quite very strict.
So things that we find like
difficult.
Things that we see as like not. That's outrageous in other.
It's like everything normal to us, but to other people it's shocking.
Yeah. And they probably can't protest, because if they protest,
they can't be
off with their head.
But it's that's
they should have to go.
And it's funny to just sort of as you've been talking, and we've brought up the women's suffrage, the anti-war movement, the BLM, that there are certain similarities with how these things have been eventually sort of changed and overcome. There is usually like a mixture of peaceful protests and protests that are, say, more aggressive in their approach. And that's not to necessarily condone violent protests, but a forceful protest, we're actually not going to back down. We're going to continue to fight this until it's changed.
Yeah.
I think it poses the question, do you think a peaceful protest is more effective than a violent protest? Because I'm sure a lot of younger people or students would say that, the violent ones are the ones that we remember, but then perhaps people who are slightly older would say, actually, I remember this peaceful protest and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you're watching this, sorry, Pete, if you're watching this right now and you're, watching us have this discussion, it'd be really interesting if you could put in the comments any protests that you remember, and whether they were peaceful or aggressive / violent. So what are you going to say, Pete?
I was going to say what's quite interesting, listening to the discussion is we seem to keep repeating ourselves, don't we, through history?
Yeah.
You know, we start off peaceful, trying to get change. Nobody listens. People get frustrated, and then we have to be more forceful. I think one of the ways, we've got to try and break that cycle, haven't we? And I think one of the ways that we can do it peacefully is to actually engage with people and get them to understand the importance of taking part in the democratic process of the country, which is voting, isn't it? Also, voting for a start, and getting out there and doing it, persuading people to get out and vote as well. Vote for the right people.
Yeah.
But also, I think what we're missing is, at the moment, to me, it looks like if you look at the MPs within the country, the majority, they're not like us, are they? They're professionals, like a professional sort of class of people that become MPs. I want to see people like you standing as MPs. That's how we're going to get things changed.
I look at myself and I think I could never be an MP. Genuinely.
Why not? Why?
I think if you look, when the TV comes on and you see the MPs, you don't really see black people there or whatever. It's just
exactly.
But I just
it's privately educated.
I think it's very
generally
difficult because the education system doesn't always necessarily educate the youth to be able to understand who to vote for, who to they don't know the system and who the right people and what they're actually choosing. Some people, they don't even understand that. They think, oh, I'll choose this one because it's gone through my family and that's what I've always done, but they don't actually research that and know the education from themselves from a young age. Also, my this is a bit personal, but my cousin, he's an MP and he's mixed race, and he's also said that he's lighter than me, but he's still of colour, and he said that in the House of Parliament, because he works in the House of Parliament, it's very difficult because there is other black and people of colour in the House of Parliament. That there's I don't want to go into it too much because it's quite personal, but there are other people of colour that find it very difficult when there's someone new. So I completely can agree what you said. Is it Lauren? How you say that, to be able to go into that, because my cousin, I don't know if you would have heard of him, Clive Lewis, is an MP for the Labour Party. And
I was just going to ask you if it was Clive Lewis.
Yes,
it is. That's my cousin, and it's so difficult because he makes some very valid points and statements, but it's so hard if the education and this systemic system of how we are brought up or how we are seen, it can be seen in two different lights.
And then I think if you know that you're not going to get hurt.
Sorry, carry on.
No, go on, Dries.
And someone that wants to go into that forte, for example, if I wanted to do that, it's very hard because there's other, like, for example, even in Black Lives Matter, I would say that there's black privilege as well. I would say because I've had black privilege because I'm British, but someone that may be black that's African, they couldn't go fly on a plane and go somewhere. They'd have to do it somewhere completely different. So it's knowing the limitations within your own background and race. And that's how he said that there was a lady, I don't want to go into it too much, but she was seen as, oh, I don't want him in here because he's another person of colour and it's seen as competition.
I mean, there's issues in every community, isn't there? And sometimes there's like sub issues within sub communities, like within communities within communities within communities.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's a larger question, isn't it? And maybe in our next Tea and Toast, then we can touch upon that and how we sort of combat and battle those challenges and make it so as a safe space for everyone in every community.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, I think we've had an amazing Tea and Toast.
I know, so do I. It's been so interesting this morning. And I think the thing is with this topic, we could actually go on for quite a while. And like Georgia just said, I do think this is something that we should pick up on again at a later point and start delving a bit more into those different issues, because it's ever so interesting. I've learned a lot this morning, to be honest. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, students.
Definitely.
Doris and Pete. It's been absolutely amazing. Do you want to tell us about your Mackenzie course, your Mackenzie Friend course?
I can. I'm really excited. This is quite a new course that Ronton Foundation is designed and is delivering, and it's basically about supporting people if they're faced with going to court and can't get any legal representation. At the moment, the course is focusing on helping people who have been evicted, because we feel that that's going to be something. Once we're coming out of the pandemic, I think we're going to see a lot of people, a lot of landlords wanting to evict, and of course, the people that be evicted won't qualify for things like legal aid, let alone afford a solicitor. So part of the course is just a bit of a taster to get us thinking about how we can go and help, support and advise people who can't do it for themselves. They're faced with being evicted and they're in court. That's the sort of rough idea. And we're hoping that we can develop that a little bit further. It's 4 sessions. It's a real taster for us. We're finding our feet with it as well. So although we had the first session last weekend, if anybody wants to sort of join us for session 2, then you can get in touch with Ronton Foundation and do that. I don't know, do you enjoy it, Georgia? I mean, you can be honest.
Yeah, I really found it very interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, from the perspective of a student, I went into it not really knowing too much about what a Mackenzie Friend is. But now I do know, and it's a really amazing way that a average person can help someone without needing to go to law school. You know, you don't need to be a lawyer to help. You can just be a person who is compassionate and wants to help people. So if you are interested in how to learn more about that and how to help people, accompany them to court, to help mediate, then please get in touch with us or look at the Ron Todd Foundation page, and I'm sure you'll be able to find a link to that course.
Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds so great. Well, Pete, we're so grateful for you to join us this morning. Thank you. And like Georgia said, no, it's great. You know what? You know that we are going to ask you to come back now, don't you, Pete?
Yeah, I think, like you said, John, we haven't talked about unions, which is what I thought we'd talk about. Yeah. But actually, the discussion's been absolutely fantastic. And I think the subject is so wide that we could revisit. I'm more than happy to come in and.
Would you come back and join us for a union one?
Anything.
Brilliant.
Any
subject, we didn't even touch on that today, did we? But I like it.
I just wanted to say one thing though, with Doris talking about education. I believe the way we change it is changing the system. It's people like you have got to consider, becoming an MP, for example, or becoming a local councillor. It's people like you. But it's about the education, isn't it? And I think things like Tea and Toast is the start of that. Your education or upskilling yourself. Don't rely on the school to do it, because they ain't going to do it.
No, and it's knowing the right ways and the right skills of how to
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, Pete, we're going to be in touch with you to come and join us for a unions one for sure. So thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Have a good one. Take care, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye.